Hello and welcome to Agenda 2030. I am Toyin Nkamiang John. On today's episode, we will be bringing to you highlights from the second quarter of the 2018 Forum of Secretary to the Government of the Federation with Secretaries to the State Government, which held in Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. The meeting had as its theme improving access to social services at national and sub-national levels, and particularly focused on issues on the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and primary health care. Stay with us. With the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, a sizable number of the 36 secretaries to the state government in attendance, and some represented by high-ranking officers in their governments, the deliberations tackled some lingering issues related to the effective implementation of the SDGs in Nigeria. The forum aims to promote effective interaction between the national and sub-national levels of government on issues of common interest that are relevant to the state of the nation and agenda of government. It is targeted at ensuring understanding, sharing experiences, streamlining and cascading of policies at the various tiers of government. This march was captured by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, who called for better linkages among the three tiers of government, the federal, state, and the local government in their collective quest to bring development to the people.
Nigeria has a lot of programs and policies, but the areas of implementation has been a major challenge. I hope in the course of our interface today, we will be able to reorder and redirect how we go about implementing our policies. Eminent colleagues, as the speakers and discussants share their wealth of experience with us, it is expected that we will make this session very robust and interactive. Let me also inform you that in 2017, the UNDP collaborated with the Department of State and Local Government Affairs in the Office of the Secretary to the Government on the strengthening of SDGs in selected local governments in Nigeria. The project covered 24 local governments in 8 states of the Federation, as well as 3 area councils in the Federal Capital Territory. 2 documents were produced from that exercise: the mapping survey report and a training model was developed to assist policymakers to deliver on the critical objectives of the SDGs at the grassroots level. As we make efforts to proceed to the second phase of that project with the support of the UNDP, steps are being taken by the Office of the Special Assistant to the President on SDGs to produce the 2 important documents to strengthening SDGs at the grassroots level for all state governments in order to scale up their human and institutional capacity. It is worthy of note that Akwa Ibom State is one of the states that has been able to train their officials in some local government areas using the training model.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation also gave reasons why the effective implementation of the SDGs is key to the overall achievement of the development agenda of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. He spoke with my colleague Desmond Utonwe in this interview.
Standing with me is the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa. He will be speaking briefly about what the government is doing to ensure the full implementation of the SDGs across Nigeria and give proper development to the people.
I've looked at the 17 goals of the SDG, and I realized that if we can implement those goals, some of the challenges we are having in the nation today would not be there. Because you are talking about eradication of poverty, inclusiveness in governance, provision of different facilities that the communities require. So I believe that what we have now, even in the economic recovery plan, a lot about what we need to do to improve the lot of our people as contained in the goals of the SDGs is being implemented. And I believe that all we need to do is to make sure that there's adequate budgetary provision, because it will cost a lot of money. Because most of the projects are social in nature. They are social interventions for which you do not expect returns. It's not as if you are investing for the purposes of making gains. Gains in a different concept altogether. Because if your people are healthy, they have access to education, to pipe-borne water, there will be less frequency of visitations to the hospitals. If you have an all-inclusive government and people feel ownership of the different levels of government in which they are participating, there's a likelihood of very little chances of people desiring to rebel against established and constituted authority. Most of the things that are happening in terms of the security challenges that we are having now are people just feeling completely not being taken care of. And they have resigned to this life of violence because they don't see any good in the system that ought to have provided and protected them. I believe that whatever this government needs to do, having been a signatory to the process and having accepted that we are going to participate in this universal concept that would aid development in our country, whatever we need to do to provide funds for it, government would be willing to do that. Considering the meager resources that are available to government, it's an act of balancing. Where do we put our money? Government is dealing seriously. If you consider that we have invested more in infrastructural development in the last 1 year.
With the admission that the attainment of the SDGs without a concerted effort from the states, Governor Udom Emmanuel, who declared the forum open, also lent his support to the call for an improved synergy.
Let us begin to see ourselves as Nigerians first and as politicians later. Politics and politicians will come and go, but the soul, spirit, abiding tenet and values of the Nigerian enterprise will endure. Let us celebrate our shared aspirations, our common destiny, and play politics of growth and development as opposed to politics of attrition, self-destruction, and zero-sum game, which is also why I'm so much excited about the theme of this year's or this quarter's forum that you are holding. The theme of this conference is improving access to social services at the national and sub-national levels. It's right on the money, that's how we call it. These, in few words, are summarize the philosophical underpinnings of what I define as the social contract theory of governance. Government exists to provide services to the people across national and sub-national levels. Failure to abide by this need, I keep saying this over and over again, failure to abide by this need and demand means a grave abdication of a cardinal responsibility, and the resultant effects will be deep apathy and a resort to self-help approaches by the citizens, and that will not be good for us as a country. I still believe, as a country, we can do a lot more in terms of education. Also, whenever I find an opportunity, I talk so much and so passionately about education and healthcare. Because when you're talking about social services at both national and sub-national level, if we can at least provide the basic needs of our Nigerian people, a whole lot of security problems would have been solved in this country. A whole lot of social problems would have been solved in this country. We need to look critically.
The Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals, Princess Adejoke Orilokwe Adefulure, who gave a keynote address on the topic integrating the SDGs into the national and sub-national development plans, maintains that for successful implementation of the SDGs, their inclusion and mainstreaming into national and sub-national policies, plans and strategies remains crucial and cannot be overemphasized. The fulfillment of the pledge to leave no one behind depends on how well the poor and vulnerable are taken into account in drafting and implementing policies and plans. The presentation by Princess Orilokwe Adefulure also discussed, among other, sensitization and review of existing strategies, plans to identify areas of change, setting up of national and sub-nationally relevant targets for nationally adopted and inclusive SDGs that are achievable.
In 2015, Nigeria, like most countries, adopted the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as a vehicle to free humanity from poverty, securing a healthy planet for future generations, and building a peaceful and inclusive society as a foundation to ensuring a life of dignity for all. This agenda commits stakeholders to work together to promote sustained and inclusive economic growth, social development, and environmental protection while leaving no one behind. The scale and ambition of this new agenda calls for an integrated approach to sustainable development and collective action at all levels, which means smarter partnership, bringing government together, civil society organization, the private sector, development partners, and other relevant stakeholders, and collective mobilization of all available resources from both public and private investment. The 2030 agenda is both ambitious and transformational. It has a set of 17 integrated sustainable development goals, broken down into measurable targets and indicators. The agenda is a shared plan to transform the world by looking after the welfare of the people within the period of 15 years. As 4 key steps towards national ownership, integration and implementation of SDG, the federal government established the Office of Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals, OSAP SDGs. Within the presidency, the office is headed by a Senior Special Assistant to the President and charged with the responsibility for planning, horizontal and vertical intergovernmental coordination, multi-stakeholders partnership, resource mobilization and utilization, as well as report advocacy and strategic communication for the 2030 agenda for sustainable development in Nigeria. Additionally, an interministerial committee has been put in place to serve as the focal point for ensuring intergovernmental coordination and cohesion. At the same time, as a demonstration of commitment to the implementation of SDG, a Presidential Council on SDG was recently inaugurated to provide the high-level policy guidance and leadership at the subnational level, at national level. Similar institutional structure have been adopted by the 36 states of the Federation as well as the Capital Territory, Federal Capital Territory. To scientifically underscore the context, the OSAP SDG, that is my office, in collaboration with National Bureau of Statistics, published the SDG Indicator Baseline Report in 2016. The baseline report provides a benchmark of the statistical information required for monitoring progress in the implementation of SDG. It underscores the need for timely, accessible, reliable, and disaggregated data to measure progress. It also informs decision-making and ensures that everyone is counted on the health-related outcomes. Maternal mortality ratio was 243 per 100,000 live births, which is very, very unacceptable. This percentage is not acceptable because it's a belief that no woman should die giving birth. And all hands must be on deck to ensure that necessary mechanism, plans, and programs should be put in place to ensure that reduction of maternal deaths, especially during birth, are reduced physically to the barest minimum, if not eradicated. Similarly, under 5 mortality rate was put at 89 per 1,000 births, meaning that baby of 0 age to 5, 89 die out of 1,000 children. This is not also acceptable because the joy of every mother is to have their children grow and develop after going through the stress of pregnancy and delivery of their baby. All hands must also be on deck to ensure that infant mortality is reduced drastically to the barest minimum, if not eradicated.
Some of the secretaries to the state government spoke on their experiences in the implementation of the SDGs in their various states and how they will deploy the lessons learned from the forum forthwith in their quest to achieve the goals and targets of the SDGs in their state.
Okay, and with me here is the SSG of Kogi State, Dr. Ayuade Folashade Arike. Could you just take us through how your state, the Kogi State, has been implementing the SDGs in view of ensuring that the lot of the people are better off under the current administration?
Yes, under the current administration of the 4th Executive Governor of Kogi State, Alhaji Yahaya Bello, we have been able to do a lot of developmental programs. And actually, as soon as we came in as a government, we went into each of the local government areas to assess what the problem is in each of the local government areas. Then, of course, we made the people to tell us their needs, what they want the government to do for them in form of development. And we put all these things together in the 21 local government areas that the state has. We put it together in a document we call the New Direction Blueprint. And so, as a government, we follow the blueprint in our developmental strategies. And we realized we were able to get our 5 thematic areas out of the blueprint in meeting the needs of the people towards development. We have 5 thematic areas. Number 1 is education. Number 2, health. 3, job creation and youth empowerment, which has to do with agricultural development, encouraging our youth to, and also Kogais that like to go into large-scale farming, and also public and civil service reforms. The area of security, my governor has, I give him top up, because before we came in, we've always had issues of insecurity rampant in Kogi State. But as I tell you now, Kogi State is so secured that people come to Kogi State without even having any form of fear of being kidnapped or robbery. And it has to do with the efforts and the passion that the governor has for the well-being of every Kogite and everybody that will be coming. Looking into the strategic location of Kogi State is at the center of Nigeria, because we are bordered by 9 states, including FCT Abuja. So we had a lot of issues about insecurity. But as I speak to you now, Kogi State is so secured that the governor of Kogi State have had maybe 3 or 4 different types of award, including international award, as accolade to really appreciate his efforts towards security in Kogi State. And recently, during the APC convention, he was actually made the chairman of the security committee to really buttress the fact that he is a security conscious governor. And we're feeling it in Kogi State.
Okay, the current the program you had today, talking about the SSG and SGF's forum, talked about integrating the SDGs in the state plan. How well would you say this would take Kogi State forward, and what other efforts is the government going to put into this to ensure that the SDGs is properly integrated and the benefits come to the people of Kogi State?
Really, as we speak, we have SDG programs in place, integrated into the development plans of the state, because it's like a bottom-up approach in which the SDG programs really fits into some of our development strategies that we have in the state. is a program. SDG is well integrated in the development plans in Kogi State, and we have actually gained a lot of things, solutions into some of the challenges that we were facing.
SDG are important to us, and in fact what we do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, for an administration that is just barely 3 years old in office, is to address those needs, the basic needs of our people. Because we must not forget that patriotism cannot be looked at in a vacuum. There's an element of popular reaction, all right, to good governance that translates into patriotism. In other words, a feeling of pride in your country, a feeling of pride in your government, a feeling of pride in your administration, a feeling of pride in your governor, a feeling of pride in your president. And that has to do with policy enunciation, policy formulation, and policy implementation, and addressing the basic needs of people. Sustainable development goals in Akwa Ibom State, we take those goals very seriously. And I can tell you, we look at deliberations like the one of the last forum in Adamawa, in Yola, and decisions are already holding on the floor of the banquet hall of the Ibom Hotel and Golf Resort. The quality of discussion, the brainstorming, the ideas put forward, all right, on the platform of sustainable development goals. We would tap into that, we key into those ideas that have been brought forward. We use those ideas that have been brought forward to look at how far we've gone. And if you do not gauge how far you've gone, if you don't know where you're coming from and you do not know where you are, you can hardly know where you are going to next. So sustainable development goals remain veritable reminders to us to stay focused and to be on course and to know how far have we gone. Are we succeeding? Are we not succeeding? If we are succeeding, are we succeeding to the level that we would have loved to be or not? So they remain constant 24/7 reminders of our duty as my boss, the governor, said, as duty as a government to give palpable dividends, life-impacting dividends of democracy to our people.
We believe very strongly in the relevance of our people, the relevance of men and women of our state to whatever it is they are able to do, to the extent that they must be able to employ themselves. As such, skills acquisition is something that we have emphasized in our educational institutions. Apart from the technical colleges that we have, 5 all over the state, we have also been able to successfully launch the first technical university in Africa, and that is the first technical university in Ibadan, which emphasizes practical as opposed to theory, not just a federal university of science and technology. The import, the essence, is to be able to train our people in terms of their minds, in terms of their brains, and in terms of their hands, so that they are capable at the end of the day of becoming entrepreneurs rather than people seeking white-collar jobs when they leave the university. In addition to ensuring they are multilingual at the end of the day, they are able to speak not only English language, they are able to speak at least one foreign language in addition to English language, in addition to their mother tongue at the end of the day, which makes them highly marketable across the West African Holy Coast zone. In fact, up to the Francophone countries. These are the things we are doing successfully in the state. And we sincerely believe that, again, because we have land, to the extent that the land area of our state is, it totals about 28,454 kilometers square. And again, out of this, we have 83% of it as arable, which is about 23,901 kilometers square of our land is arable in all the 68 local government areas and the local government development areas that we have in the state, which means that the issue of using agriculture as the basis of our industrialization is something that we emphasize. It's something that we have taken a very costly look at. I'd like to remind you that the first skyscraper in Africa was built out of the returns of cocoa in Ibadan, and that is a 25-story building that we call Cocoa House. We are going to, by the special grace of God, restore that past glory of the state by ensuring that agriculture remains the mainstay of our economy. Not only in terms of feeding the people, in terms of food security, in terms of creating employment, we're also talking about processing, because we're talking about agro-industrial businesses that will develop within all the geopolitical zones that we have successfully provided access for. So we are moving towards what we call the transformation stage, which we have been able to successfully do to almost 90%. The other aspect of the tripod of the agenda of the state government is what we call repositioning. And with what we have done, because of the fact that we have put all these structures in place, ease of doing business in Nigeria now, we are ranked fourth in this country, which means that with all the things we have put in place, we should be able to ordinarily attract investors to the state, for them to do business, for them to transform our economy from just a rural economy, not just a traditional agricultural society, to a processing economy, to the extent that our people will live well, they will feed well, they will grow, they will actually clothe very well, and at the end of the day, they will be able to sustain their livelihood at the end of the day.
Remember, you can always watch this program and other episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channels on youtube.com/Fresh News TV and youtube.com/Agenda 2030 TV. You can also watch the program live on Facebook. Just log on to www.facebook.com/Fresh News NG and www.facebook.com/Agenda 2030 TV. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Agenda 2030 TV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Remember to drop your comments and share with your contacts. Do use the hashtag Agenda 2030 and hashtag Agenda 2030 TV. And that has been the size of our program this week. Do keep a date with us next week as we bring you another refreshing episode. I am Toyin Kamyang John. Thanks for staying with us.